Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. I recently watched a video from Erin Smith where she used a tiny journal to create a swatch book of all her markers. I thought that it was such a great idea for how you can use random little notebooks that you may have lying around and give them a purpose. And since I've been getting really into fountain pens and fountain pen inks, I wanted to go ahead and start with swatching those out. I do have two little notebooks in my collection that I was debating between. One is an A6 Leuchtturm 1917 and the other is this A6 Hobonichi notebook. I decided to go with the Hobonichi since it has Tomoe River paper, which will more closely reflect how these inks appear in my Sterling Ink Common Planner and Hobonichi Hone. For my swatches, I'll be using the round end of this glass dip pen and then my Pilot Erode Sushi dip pen with a medium nib for the shade names. So, like I mentioned, I recently just started getting into fountain pens and inks. I used to always be a die-hard gel pen girl, but I'd say now that I've been introduced to the world of Tomoe River paper, I've also been so much more exposed to fountain pens. It's been so much fun trying out different fountain pens and the different ways you can use inks. For a while, I thought I only wanted pens that took ink cartridges, but then I started to discover beautiful bottled shimmering inks, which I think is what ultimately pushed me over the edge and made me really want to explore this whole new world of stationery. As you'll see throughout this video, most of the inks I have some type of shimmer or sheen to them. The majority of these are ink samples that I either selected from Goulet pens or were part of their mystery bundles. For my swatches, I also tried to sort them in somewhat of a rainbow order. It's definitely by no means perfect, but it's good enough. Also, I'm making sure to leave some space here and there in between color categories in case I ever decide to pick up some new shades in those color families. I really enjoyed swatching out all of my inks and being able to see how they differ when applied in a concentrated amount versus writing, which will likely be the way that I use these inks most often. I've also heard of some people painting with these inks, which sounds so fascinating to me, but I haven't explored that side yet. Let me know if you use inks for painting. Do you use them similar to how you would use watercolors? I'd love to know. Going back to the notebook itself, this was one of the free notebooks that came with Hobonichi planners for 2025 if you bought directly from Hobonichi. I've never used one of these blank Hobonichi notebooks before and was waiting to find a purpose for it. I'm very excited to be using it for swatches since it'll definitely come in handy and be a good reference for how certain colors and inks will look and perform in my planners. Now, I know it's not exactly the same paper or even the same exact color as what's in my Sterling Ink Common Planner and my Hobonichi Hone, but it'll still be more accurate compared to if I had done this in my Leuchtturm. This brings me to my next point, where if you decide to do this, try swatching in a notebook that's either the same brand as your journal or planner, or in a notebook with similar paper. I know in some of the Archer & Olive subscription boxes, sometimes they'll include these small notebooks, so those can be perfect if you're using a notebook with thick 160 GSM paper. Leuchtturm also offers a generous variety of different sized journals, as well as Sterling ink for those of you who love Tomoe River paper. My plan with this notebook is to eventually use it to swatch all of my markers and pens as well, which may be a little ambitious. But that's the goal. I think it'll just be so handy to have everything swatched out in one little book. In the past then, I used to swatch out all of my pens and markers at the back of my journals, which would be nice for the 6 months that I would use it or up to a year that I would use it, but then I would have to repeat the process all over again when I start a new journal. Having this little journal on its own will be very handy, that way I won't have to repeat the process over and over again like how I did in the past. Today, I'm only focusing on swatching out my inks since I'm still pretty unfamiliar with how most of these look. If you're interested in seeing the whole process of me filling out this book, definitely let me know. Maybe this can become a little series or something on my channel. That could be fun. Anyway, I was really impressed with just how well this paper was holding up to these inks. I know that a lot of people really love Tomoe River paper because of how well they hold up to fountain pen inks, but it's still such a beautiful sight to see. A few of these inks are super watery and thin compared to the others. As soon as I touched them down onto the page, it almost seemed like all of the ink was rushing down the nib. Even though I was concerned, none of the inks ever bled through the page, which was such a relief. I did, however, check every now and then just to see if it was bleeding through because I definitely assumed multiple times and thought to myself, oh, that one's definitely bleeding through. But thank goodness that was never the case. I also thought it was so interesting how different inks would dry with a different sheen over top. For instance, the Diamine Winter Spice appeared brown at first, but after it dried, it took on this gorgeous and interesting green shift. Same with Diamine Alpine. At first, I thought it was a deep forest green, but once it dried, it had this very intense icy blue shimmer to it. It's so fascinating how many different inks are out there. There are so many beautiful combinations that really just cannot be compared to. It's honestly getting to the point where I'm just not really interested or curious in new colored pens, since the inks likely wouldn't even compare to the beautiful multi-dimensional fountain pen inks. I don't know, it's a dangerous obsession for sure. Not only am I a huge fan of shimmering inks, I also love the very soft and delicate colors that are also available on the market. Inks like Colorverse's Cat's Eye Nebula Glistening that has this very soft turquoise shade to it, or Wearinghoul's Tinkerbell, which is a muted earthy green. Though a little difficult to see on camera, Wearinghoul's Wendy Darling is such a gorgeous and delicate baby blue. I'm definitely a fan of these more translucent inks, where they can be applied lightly for a gentle touch of color, or in layers to build up the opacity and shading. Incredibly versatile inks. In terms of the ink samples, I definitely plan to use them up before I purchase any full-sized bottles. Currently, the only 2 full-size bottles of ink that I have are Diamine Oxblood and a black ink from Quillix, both of which were gifts. I'd have to say that currently, I could potentially see myself purchasing full sizes of Robert Oster Rose Gold Antica, Sailor dipped in Coral Humming, Diamine Autumn Oak, Colorverse Cat's Eye Nebula Glistening, Wearinghoul Tinkerbell, De Atramentis Heliogen Green Copper, Colorverse Mystic Mountain, Sailor Manyo Akamai, and it's hard to choose between Colorverse Under the Shade and Pilot Iroshizuku Kirisame since they're both grays and a little close to each other. It's a tough choice, but probably the Pilot Iroshizuku one since it's a little more unique in that it's kind of a grayed purple. But of course, this is just wishful thinking, and I'm honestly just very thankful to have samples to try out. This is such a cool thing that places like Goulet Pens and Vanessa offer these ink samples. As a newbie to fountain pens and inks, I really appreciate this option and being able to try out inks without having to commit to a large, full-size bottle of a color that I might not end up liking. So I truly appreciate these shops for making this option possible. I would love to know if you own any of these inks, or let me know what your favorite inks are. I love hearing your recommendations and chatting with you. Well, here are all of my inks swatched out. I believe I counted a total of 44 inks, so I definitely have enough to test out and play with for quite a while. Let me know if you have a swatch book or how you keep your ink swatches organized. I'm so excited to have this adorable little addition to my journals. I think this was such a perfect use for it, and it'll definitely be reached for often. I don't have any plans on expanding my ink swatches anytime soon, but if I happen to pick any more up, I should still have some room to hopefully categorize them by color family. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope it maybe inspires you to create your own swatch book or find a use for an empty notebook you may have laying around. And if you'd like to see a part 2 to this swatch book, what should I swatch next? Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.